Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan. And man, we have got a great podcast here. We're looking forward. We're looking backward. We got this big NFC Championship game on Sunday, but we can't, Adam, do this podcast. Unlike a regular season podcast, we got to look back at just how dominant the Eagles were over the Giants in the NFC Divisional round. It's not like something you often see in the second round of the playoffs, but the Eagles just from start to finish, and we've got some great stuff to go through with it. It's, between talking to people and then just going back and watching some of it myself, there were some things that went on that were hard to believe. It's almost like it's one of those games, and we've seen a couple of times this year the Eagles be able to do this, Adam, where it's like you just choose what you want to do and you do it. And you dare them to stop you.
No doubt. I mean, but I really wanted to talk about, we'll talk about it in this show, where you asked, look, the Eagles have the better roster, they have a better team, they should roll over them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
said they should win. I didn't think roll, but yeah, because they had the better roster.
Right. Well, they should have no trouble winning. They should have no trouble winning. And right. I agreed. I thought they could steamroll them, but my issue was coming into the game, although we updated our Lane Johnson information on that show, where people around the situation felt he could last. But you don't know until you play. This is Yvonne had great information how he would not. Jason had the same exact injury, torn adductor. Jason told us on our pregame show that he played with it, but he wouldn't practice until Friday. If they had a Sunday game, he would rehab Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then practice lightly on Friday, whatever he could do, and then somehow play. But this is different. He hasn't had this all season. He just had this.
Right.
Just started practicing recently a little bit. Now he's got to test it out. You just don't know if he's going to last, and he did. If I would have known he would have lasted, I would have picked him to win by, my personal line for this game was 12 without the injuries. I know Vegas probably wouldn't go that high because of the way the Giants played the last quarter of the season, which is on tape. They look much improved, but roster versus roster, my God, it's just unbelievable how much better the roster was. And the coach to the hilt. We'll get into that. There's so much detail that we have here. We don't have 2 hours. We'll get this done under an hour, but we're going to talk more about, also we'll add to this on our Friday show, because we'll get a 49ers perspective about their game and how they feel about coming into this game. But this was something pretty special, this game that they just played.
Yeah, and you mentioned not Q. You mentioned Jay talking about how he played through a similar injury, and they had some really good stuff. Both him and Quentin Michael, they broke down this upcoming game against the 49ers on the podcast. They looked back to the Giants game too, but really focused on the upcoming game. And a lot of the great game within the game matchups, they were able to really go through and take you where they think the Eagles have the advantage and areas that they think the Niners might have some advantages. But if you kind of listen to them both, it seems like they're both leaning toward the Eagles. I think we all believe the Eagles are the better team and have the better 53-man roster. That doesn't always mean you win the game. I would have told you last year. I would have told you last year. I would have thought that the Chiefs had a better roster than the Bengals, but the Bengals won the game. This year, I actually think the Bengals have a better roster, but the quarterback's got to make a difference there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Purdy versus Hurts, obviously, it's a landslide. But the game isn't done that way. There's so much within the game: coaching, field position, special teams.
Yep.
Up front, D-line, offensive line, individual matchups, which we're going to talk about in this pod. Giants, Eagles. I kind of wish we were doing this like we would have access to the what the all 22 looked like on Saturday night or Sunday, because I found some stuff some stuff on Tuesday. I was like, man, I wish I would have known about this when we do it, like when we do the post game show, because you don't know. There's no way you would know this, but I'm kind of laughing about it was kind of like the Eagles were the pro team and the Giants were the college team, something like that. It really was David versus Goliath, but I didn't know that going in. It would be this, you couldn't see it like that. And I told you to throw out the Week 18 game. That's why we decided not to talk about it, because it had no relevance.
Right.
Because there was nothing that you could take from that game. The Eagles didn't have the juice because they knew they could win the game, go against the Giants backups. They kind of played like it. Whereas this game, okay, Giants have been playing better lately. They better bring their A game. They sure as hell brought it. This is pretty impressive.
Absolutely. All right, so make sure you're also checking out the Q&A. Some pretty good stories there and some references too from both those guys. Really fun show. The Q&A on the Inside the Birds platform. Speaking of our platform, for our Patreon subscribers, Adam, you'll be doing your normal chat from 8 to 8:30 on Wednesday night tonight.
Yep,
and then tomorrow, Thursday night, you and I will do an Ask ITB live stream that we do once a month for our Patreon subscribers. So that'll be 9:00 p.m. Thursday night. Look forward to chatting with our subscribers as we always do once a month. And then we're getting pretty close to having our Chalk Talk series, our interview with someone involved with the NFL pretty much finalized. And we're obviously trying to sort of fold that in with what the Eagles are doing right now. So we will effort to get you as much information once we have everything down that we possibly can.
We're actually, we have our tentacles with 5 potential guests. It's like we're hoping that 2 say yes. We're just gonna somehow pull it off to get 2 done. But obviously we have to get 1 done. But just kind of one of these things because we want to give you so much value for this, the Patreon subscription that you have. People have it, and then obviously if the Eagles are able to win this game, we got something pretty special cooked up for you. We're in the early stages of potentially doing shows in Phoenix, and we'll leave it at that.
Can't wait to have that opportunity. We'll see if we get that opportunity. I know a lot of people say you guys are jinxing it, so we won't say too much more on that. All right, go get your game on at the Gallery Bar, Book, and Games in Ocean City Resort this football season. Cheers your favorite drinks while cheering on your favorite team. Get in on a parlay while in the middle of a party. Go for the sports scene and go for the endless screens. Go to the Gallery, go to Ocean, go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, a couple of transactions that the Eagles made real quick. But now we've talked about this last podcast. They're signing guys now who were part of the practice squad throughout the year or may have been on the team at one point and got released. So offensive tackle Jared Williams is their most recent signing to a futures deal. So once again, as Adam well explained last podcast, these guys, a futures deal means 2023 season. We're still in the 2022 season. Jared Williams cannot play at all right now. He can only play in 2023 or for OTAs or whatever offseason program. But it is yet another offensive tackle, Adam, that they've kind of brought in and out throughout the year.
Yeah, he was off their practice squad, so they're signing him for the future for next season, and he'll be in their off-season program, and they'll take a look at him, and they list him as an offensive tackle, and then they'll see what he can do, whether he could push for a back-end roster spot. But look, the Eagles have such a great history of developing these undrafted free agents and guys who kind of bounce around. Boy, talk about in Jeff Stoutland we trust. This game, I cannot wait to get this. This is Jared Williams. Maybe will be lucky enough to be coached by Stoutland. Let's put it that way for the future. We'll see.
Yeah, and we'll have this discussion way after the season or shortly after the season. But tackle is a position, offensive tackle, where you might have fluidity. Obviously, Andre Dillard's on the last year of his deal, so he's very likely not to be back next year. He probably doesn't want to be a backup. Jack Driscoll will by then be entering. Will it be entering year 4 of a 4-year deal next year?
Boys.
God, did that time fly with him? Yeah, that's crazy.
I remember. I think you had a note. I don't know if it was 2 years ago. You're like, hey, you were hearing like he's the next Stoutland teacher's pet sort of guy. This is his guy. And it turned out to happen because he's been like this. He's the swing tackle, backup, kind of guard too. Obviously, guard, right tackle, and he's been a nice story development. But he's kind of what he is a low end start, high end backup. But he's been very valuable.
Yes, very bad, and he started a lot of games. So, and then there'll be some other departures on the offensive line too that we'll get into. So, obviously, good to replenish and at least have some bodies out there to compete. Obviously, they've got the other kid that they held on to all year long, Josh Sills, right? Who's also an offensive tackle.
Big dude. He is a big dude. He's 6'6". I do wonder. I know they've been cross training him at guard. I don't know if he's athletic enough to play tackle, but you can't cheat size. And with Dillard almost certain to be gone, they're going to need to figure out who's Mailata's backup. I know Driscoll can do it. He's really better off at guard or right tackle. And I know some people around the league thought he wasn't strong enough to play guard, and he's probably better off at right tackle, and that's fine. But you're right, because when you really look at, before we move on here, they got Roderick Johnson, who was with the Texans. He's been there most of the season. Fred Johnson, who we remember with the Bengals and the Buccaneers. He's also in the practice squad. And right now, that is it. So, yeah, they need to take a look at Cameron Tom, not Tom Cameron, Cameron Tom.
Oh, and don't forget about Brett Toth, who will probably be able to compete next year for a spot.
Yeah.
I mean, a back end spot.
Designated for return. Right. He's come back from the ACL injury, unfortunately. Yeah, he is on PUP with designation to return. He won't be back this season, but that way, because the reason why they designated for return, so they could just see him practice and see what the knee looks like. So nothing official yet, but there's been no indication that they would activate him, because then they'd have to cut somebody. And I at this point right now, why would you cut anybody? Why would you? There's just no reason to cut anybody.
Agreed. All right, let's talk about some Eagles injuries. We'll go through injury situations for both teams. Start with the Eagles. As we've seen many, many, many times this year, and it's amazing they've been isolated incidents every single time. Landon Dickerson limped off the field against the Giants. Andre Dillard replaced him, and then Landon Dickerson wound up coming back onto the field. But so his right ankle, I believe, was the issue there.
Yeah.
So obviously we'll see this week if there's anything limiting him or if there's any reasons to be concerned. It is fascinating for a guy who has such a long injury history to have come in and out of games almost Jason Peters style this year, but always comes right back. He's always there, right back. And
I didn't see him tap out. I didn't see him like motion, hey, like Peters would do. Yeah. Peters just turned 41. Can you believe it?
I can't. And with Dickerson, it's always leg or lower leg, his ankle or knee or whatever. So, but he's held up and he did make the Pro Bowl. So good for him. I thought he had a good game. Avonte Maddox. So today is a big day. I mean, I don't think it's that big of a day, but if there's a chance that Avonte Maddox could come back and play in this NFC Championship game, he's got to do something today. He was never on IR, so it's not like he has to be activated into a window, but he's got to be able to get out there and show the coaches he can do something. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a very tricky injury, because as you first reported several weeks ago, he had a procedure done. Because remember, they're mirror match coverage. He's got to stop and start, be able to move, be able to follow that receiver. It's right now, until he practice. Right now, as we go into today's practice, he's a long shot. Let's say he starts working, then you move him up to maybe. But if he doesn't practice, if he doesn't even get out there limited today, he's a major long shot. He's been out for so long. He's got to be able to do everything. You can't put him out at 70%. It's working with Gardner Johnson as a slot corner. It just is. Like I know we'd like to see him at safety, where he's better off all the time, because he could ball track and potentially get a turnover. But right now, he's a long shot, and the hope was always, if they get to the Super Bowl, that becomes in play, because they would have the bye week and see if he can get out there. But that's it. Now Sipos is still in IR. He's not been designated for return yet, and I know he told the media that he thinks he's ready. Well, we'll see. Because Brett Kern, by the way, we don't talk about special teams much. He actually did okay.
Yeah, he had a much better game.
Yeah.
Much better game. Came at the right time with him, with Aaron Sipos now ready to come back. So if they wanted to, if Sipos could practice this week, they could almost, I don't know, have a punter battle in practice.
Remember I said that last week? A punt off?
A punt off, yeah. Oh, man.
That's ridiculous. But anyway, I don't know where I come up with stuff, but anyway.
All right, before we get to the Niners injuries, I want to ask you a question I've asked you a lot this year, and you've gotten the answer right every single time. What does VPN stand for?
Virtual private network.
That's right. Virtual private network, something we could all use. In fact, I would say we all need it. We talk a lot about the importance of online privacy, and we've been proud to partner with NordVPN. NordVPN essentially creates an encrypted tunnel for your data. It helps you protect your identity and your information by hiding your IP address, which means you can go online from almost anywhere safely and securely, and you get that extra layer of protection. It's like a safety net. Third parties can't spy on you, neither can your internet service provider. Secures your online data. You can get access to blocked websites without revealing your identity or location, which, by the way, happens a lot when you're traveling overseas and you want to access an American website and some countries block that. Well, NordVPN would help you with that. It also allows you to use public Wi-Fi without having your information stolen, can help you prevent against malware being injected or without anyone knowing where you're located. Of course, you can avoid some unlawful government surveillance as well. All right.
Yes.
So all these things, whether you're like Adam and I and always working out and about, you're a gamer, you're a traveler, you're a student, and you don't want to use your school's like mouse-driven, like the hamster's got to run around the wheel to power the Wi-Fi. So you go to a better coffee shop. Anybody can use NordVPN. So grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/ITB to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan plus 4 months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All right. 49ers injuries. So I don't know if you've heard this, but Jimmy Garoppolo has been out for quite a while, and there's this quarterback the 49ers are using named Brock Purdy. You hear about this, Adam?
Yeah. Yeah. I just we'll get more into this Friday, but just give you a little taste. It's just strange going from camp to camp because you never know what you're going to see. And I didn't know what I was going to see when I visited the 49ers. So I'm there mid-August. Of all people, you know this because I probably reminded you of it. I'm sure you'll remember this. You know who the number 2 quarterback was for the Niners when I was out there?
I believe it was Nate Sudfeld.
Correct. So it was Trey Lance. It was Nate Sudfeld. Brock Purdy was only the 3 because Jimmy Garoppolo was not allowed to practice with the team. They're trying to move him. And they could not find anybody. They just couldn't find a team that would take him because he had to be if you traded for him, he had to be a starter. That's the thing. You weren't going to trade for him to be a backup. The kind of money he was making. So John Lynch did a smart thing. He went to Kyle Shanahan and said, hey, listen, let's if we can't get anywhere close to what we want, let's just keep him. He'll be the backup for Trey. Turned out to be a very smart move. And Nate Sudfeld didn't have a very good camp. In fact, the data I was there, he didn't throw. He was back to having the issues with holding on the football and not processing well. And he wound up getting cut. And then they kept Garoppolo as the backup. Lance breaks his ankle. Garoppolo then breaks his foot. And it's just, you can't make this up. Brock Purdy, no one thought anything of him. It's just, this is this business. Just when you think you figured it out, something crazy happens. This story with the 49ers quarterback situation, I don't think it's been detailed enough. You can't make it up.
So I saw today that there have been 5 rookie quarterbacks who have played in a conference championship game. And surprisingly, a lot of them were recent. Can you name a few? Do you think any come to your mind?
Other than Brock Purdy?
Yes. Well, yeah, he'll be the 5th, or
Right.
will he be the 6th? Either way, I think there's been 5
That's you mean started a championship game?
that have rookies that have started a championship game. Yeah.
How far back do I need?
They're actually more recent than you think. A couple of them have occurred in the last 10 to 15 years.
I'm probably going to be wrong with this stuff. Lamar Jackson?
No, he did not make it the championship his rookie year. Remember, he took over for Flacco. I think they lost that first round game.
Yes.
Actually, it's just 4 because Brock will be the 5th.
Okay.
You're in the right church, wrong pew when you said Lamar Jackson. You might have been correct with the franchise.
Oh, Ben Roethlisberger for sure.
Well, yes, that's one. That's the Steelers franchise, right?
That I remember because they talk about hiding the quarterback.
Yes,
they would. He was so like raw and not ready.
Right.
So it was a miracle that they got in there. Yeah, I would say yeah. So Roethlisberger.
Now I just gave you a hint. I said you had an interesting franchise when you said Lamar Jackson there.
Did Flacco? Did Flacco?
Yes. Joe
Did he?
Flacco. Yep.
I
Lost to
don't
the
remember
Steelers in
that.
the AFC Championship 2008.
Oh
Yep.
gosh, I don't remember. Okay, wow.
Now,
Yeah.
there are two others. One you should definitely get. It's just eluding you, and the other is like a tough one, man. It's really
Which conference? Which conference?
one's AFC, one's NFC.
Okay, one AFC. It was the second year. I think Marino made it his second year. Did he not?
It was the second year, yeah, and it's more recent. Both have been in the last. One of them was in the last. Let's see, 13 years, and the other was in the last 22 years. So
okay. Championship game, AFC. Who else could it possibly be? Andrew Luck? No way.
nope.
No.
All right, you want me to give you a hint?
Yeah, give me division.
Quarterback who played at USC.
Oh, Sanchez.
There
Sanchez?
you go, Sanchez.
Did he?
Yep.
His rookie season?
Yeah,
Did he?
lost to the Colts in the AFC Championship game.
I know he made
30-17.
back. Yeah, you want to talk about hiding a quarterback. It was Thomas Jones. It was the defense. Don't let him throw and don't turn it over. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The last
Actually,
go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
The last one I don't think you'd get if I gave you 5 more guesses. It's a tough one.
What
NFC.
division?
NFC South.
Okay, I'll get it. Oh, wait a minute.
Will you though?
You said last how many years?
This one happened a lot. This one was the furthest in 1999. So that would be 23 years ago.
Quarterback.
Yep.
The hell, 99 wasn't the Bucs.
It's funny thing is because when I say the name, you'll be like, "Oh yeah," but you'll never think of it.
Oh, yeah.
I know our listeners are like screaming it right now.
I don't want to look it up. First initial of his first name.
S. SK, first and last.
Oh, sugar.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I'm baffled. Go ahead.
Sean King of the Tampa Bay Bucs.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, now
that's right. Win with defense and don't let him throw. And how could I forget Ricky Prohl? Yeah. Oh, yep. I could have gotten it.
For Eagles fans, Eagles fans will like the fact that all 4 of these guys lost in the championship. In fact, the closest was Sean King losing 11-6 to the Rams. The other 3 guys lost by at least 2 touchdowns. Sanchez lost 30-17, Flacco 23-14, and Roethlisberger 41-27.
I remember when Tony Dungy became the Colts head coach, they were so scared, the Colts fans, that there's going to be Dungy-sized and they wouldn't let him throw. Peyton Manning. I'm like, are you serious?
Crazy. All right. So let's get back to the injury situation here. We know Brock Purdy is starting. By the way, if Brock Purdy gets hurt, I think Shanahan just says we're going to run the wing tee and give the ball to Debo and have him.
It'll be all 12. It'll be Josh 12 teams Johnson as the backup right now. They've left the door open. Mm-hmm. It's a long shot because he hasn't practiced yet, but he was doing some conditioning work on the field. Like if he starts to practice, he's not on IR, by the way. So he could start their hope is he starts practicing this week, and obviously if they win, he could be available as the number 2 in the Super Bowl. But they're giving him an outside chance to dress this week to be active for the game. But then so McCaffrey has a calf contusion. He said he's good to go. Elijah Mitchell, who's their closer, so strange. The miss on Trey Sermon hurt them because they don't have a back with great size. McCaffrey is not a drive sustainer. They don't look at him like that. The Panthers didn't look at. He's great, but he's not a guy you're going to give volume carries to close a game to. They don't think. So Elijah Mitchell's got a groin injury. He's been nothing but hurt this season. He's good when he's healthy. Yeah, he opened the season as their starter, but they got kind of down on him. He had a grade 3 MCL sprain. He had the rare on IR twice this season. Remember, they adjusted the rule this season. It used to be you can't be on IR twice. If you are, you can't come back. But this year, you're allowed to come back after being on twice.
Right. So. You bring up a really fascinating point that both teams running closer running backs are not big running backs.
No,
Kenny Gainwell is a closer, and this guy.
Maybe it's new school coaching. Maybe it's Well, then again, the way the Eagles opened the holes, did they need a closer against the Giants? Jeez.
Right.
Gainwell looked good, but anyway, Charles Ameno, who, by the way, he's got a off the field issue, which we'll see if the Niners let him dress. We'll get more into that Friday. He is really a good player. I don't know what the Texans were thinking of when they traded him last year, but he is their top backup DN, and he also plays a nickel. Occasionally, he'll move inside. He's got an oblique strain. He left the game and then came back to finish it. And then their IR guys are obviously Trey Lance with a follow-up surgery. He won't be ready until May. Jordan Matthews, who moved to tight end, he tore his ACL. Another
poor
former
Jordan
Eagle.
Matthews in the knees, man.
I know. Yeah, he's so many injuries. Son Ridgeway, who's got a biceps tear. He is on IR. They've kept the hope that maybe if they get to Super Bowl, he could be available. He was like their third D tackle. He was a good fight. He was also that team T.Y. McGill. T.Y. McGill.
A lot of former Eagles there.
Yeah, and he's like their fourth D tackle. And Emmanuel Mosley, their best corner, at least to start the season, tore his ACL, so he's out. That is why Diamador Lenore is starting for Mosley. So that is their injury situation.
Well, Mosley injury really hurts them because he's a good corner, right? He's their best corner.
Oh, he's not only that, because I know that Lenore's played well this season. He's graded out better. But the reality is he's a good guy you would go after. And Ward is not graded out as well lately than he had earlier. They give up shot plays, the 49ers.
Did play better against Dallas, I think. But I know he struggled.
They did. They did.
Seattle.
You're right. He had a pick.
Right.
Yeah, he had a pick.
Right. But you can understand. I mean, Seattle's got some pretty tough weapons. So with Lockett and with Metcalf. So
by the way, so do the Eagles. I mean,
so do the Eagles.
I'm like brimming. I cannot wait for this. I was really hoping they would win and beat Dallas. Not that it's not just about Dallas being, America's team and they talk a lot and all that junk. I just want to see the best game possible against the best two teams.
Yes.
And here we are as we get started.
All right, well, let's get into it. We got we're going to break down this game against the Giants first to tell you what the Eagles did really well. And if you didn't, unless you were living in a cave and didn't catch the game, the Eagles ran the ball really well. Now, we've talked to sources, watched a little tape. The question was, in my mind, was why? Why were they able to run the ball so well? And there's always not just one thing. Obviously, Adam, starts with the offensive line. They played really well. Every single one of them, I think, had a really good game.
Oh, yeah.
Even including Lane Johnson, by the way, who just deserves all the respect in the world. You could see him kind of touching his midsection or groin area sometimes.
In the first quarter, especially. Yeah. You can see. Yes.
But what did you learn about this? I have something I want to show our people on YouTube in a minute. Okay. I'm going to do a little screen share, but I want to know what you've learned.
I'm going to use this line. I don't think I've used it since the Green Bay game. Even Andy Reid would continue to run the football in this game. It was so. But here's the difference about the Green Bay game. Yes, Eagles ran for over. Was it three? I don't know what I know it was over 300. But Green Bay was misaligned. I was told by multiple people. They just were not lined up correctly. They also dove and they didn't wrap. Yes, the Eagles did a great job of blocking, but also Green Bay contributed to it. The Giants had lack of energy on defense, and this was so choreographed well. As you well said, everybody blocked well. Double teams, combos, gap scheme, everything they did, they moved. And you cannot move Dexter Lawrence off the ball until this game. Like, this was ridiculous what they did to this guy. And also another thing that you talked about, Lane, they also won their one-on-one matchups. It's one thing to win on combo blocks where they were beautifully choreographed. They won their one-on-one blocks. This was just one of these things where, okay, the Giants played well for the final quarter of the season. The tape showed it, so you can't really say they didn't. They did. But it didn't matter in this game because the superior team, the staff, everything they did as we get started here with their offensive line, it actually looked like, one person told me, that they looked defeated after the first quarter, like they knew that they kind of what's the term? The jig was up. You ever hear that term?
Yeah.
Jig was up. No, it's over for them. It's kind of like they knew it. They had a lack of energy, and the Eagles, maybe they sensed it, and they just were relentless. Because they got such a big lead. Now, I give him credit. They still scored late. Gainwell had a beautiful run, well blocked, and he made a great move.
Mm-hmm.
But it had, like, let's say, like the game was like head to the fourth quarter, they were only up by 13. They would have thrown like crazy. They would have just tried to keep scoring, but they didn't have to because there's no the coaches call it passing tempo. You don't have to up it when you're up so big. You're up 20-0. Of course, you're going to run the second half. Again, Andy Reid would have done that, I think. But
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I got to preface it, put an asterisk. But, and also, I got to say, Kelsey, it's his call. I mean, he does. It's, if they win this game and they get to the big game in Arizona and they win it, maybe he will retire. But physically, right now, I would like to know. We'll ask Cosell this because he's really the only one we know who could answer this. Is he the best center in football right now? I mean, the way he's
I don't watch enough Chiefs
football
football because I know Creed Humphrey is really good.
He's great. I know.
But I don't know that Creed is as agile. He may be stronger than Kelsey,
yes,
but
bigger and stuff. Yeah.
Either way, they're both great. Yeah.
This guy, the bleep that he was doing in this game is just, no human at 35 years old playing this man's game should be able to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say anymore. This is just absurd what he's doing. And by the way, kudos to the Kelsey family for feeding their sons good food. They have 2 Hall of Fame players that, like, I know the Matthews family is pretty athletic, but this is just ridiculous what Jason is doing. A 6th-round pick. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Either good food or rocket fuel or a combination of both, because they both play like they're shot out of cannons. Very explosive.
And I saw 3 clips, and I just... I love that term coaches use, looking for work. And you know the one-arm play where he just moved Jelly, Justin Ellis, Jelly Ellis, as Mike Mayock used to call him.
Yes.
He was with the Raiders. He just, it's like, come on, you can't, this didn't happen, but it did. There's so many things that went on in this game. That's why I said I wish we had 2 hours.
Yeah.
To just discuss it. We want to condense it, but it was really fun talking to people, because usually when you talk to people from other teams, they don't want to act excited because they're not supposed to. They're actually, they look at this and they go, Jesus Christ, what is it? What is going on here? This should not be happening, but it is. Like, this should not be happening to another. Like, the Eagles should not be able to do this to another professional football team. Like, it's kind of like if they had 6 quarters, maybe they would have run for 400.
Yeah, it did. It had that sort of varsity versus JV feel. I took in the notes I took. You hit it on the head. I thought not only was Jason Kelsey impressive, it was how he was impressive. They used him as a puller a lot. And not only did he hold up, by the way, in pass protection against those guys who are bigger than him, and there was it Ellis that he one-armed to the ground, or was that Lawrence?
Yes.
There was one. Okay, it was Ellis.
I think it was 70.
Yeah, it was 71. Right, it was Ellis. But yeah. I thought, and this is partly Jason Kelsey being good, and I think Jalen Smith is a guy who struggles. Jason Kelsey would get up into the second level, and he bullied at times Jalen Smith. So that was
he trucked him. That's not usually Jason. It's usually just technique, pushes, but he trucks some guys.
Yeah.
And their communication on I think I was telling Mike Gill this on Tuesday. One of the underrated things that someone pointed out to me earlier this week, he goes, you got to understand about Philly. Because you want to know why they're so good? This line, 4 of the 5 guys, this is the 3rd year together, starting. Remember, Milo was a full-time starter in 2020 for the first time. Dickerson, 2nd year. Kelsey, forever. Samalo, since 18. Lane Johnson, forever. That, not to take anything away from him, but continuity counts. It means something. Right. And communication does. This is why they're elite. Other than the coaching is phenomenal. They're all good football players. They've been played together. The timing. Trey Thomas has talked. How many times has Trey talked about continuity and communication on our show? Always.
I mean, offensive line is that it's quintessential to be good. So, and then when you have guys coming in and out, sometimes that's hard. Sure. I wrote this down because I wanted to point this out. This was a really nice play. I should have actually clipped it to show, but you'll get my point. It was a 12-yard gain by Miles Sanders in the second quarter on an outside zone, and Kelsey pulled from his center spot outside to the left. So whenever your center pulls, then your left guard, if it's a run to the left, outside left, has to then put what they call a down block on the nose tackle, the person who was head up over Kelsey. At that moment is when Dickerson had left and Andre Dillard came in. and he put a really nice down block on 97, big Dexter Lawrence there, so that Kelsey could go ahead and loop out and kick out, and Miles just followed Kelsey, and Kelsey put a really nice block in the second level. But I thought that was a down block takes you got to be aggressive. They talk about guards have to be mean, nasty. I mean, it's not an easy block because you're not blocking the guy in front of you. You're blocking the guy that your center would ordinarily block if he was there. So you need the lateral movement, and then you need to really shove the guy because that guy's coming toward you, seeing the center pull, and you got to shove him. And I thought Andre Dillard did a really nice job about that. And remember, this is the first year that they've even thought of playing him at any position other than left tackle. He started playing left guard, which you noted. They were giving him some snaps there
back in spring. Yeah, it was before the draft. We had heard that. I remember when we got this note, I'm like, this can't be right. There's no Andre Dillard guard. Come on, no way. Mm-hmm. Oh well, here he is, and he looked like, from what I was told, he had good energy for it. He took the assignment well. Good for him. This is actually good for him. I doubt that anyone would sign and play guard, but at least he's shown he can do it. Because the reason why, when they got calls on Dillard over the years, they just looked at it and said, okay, he's a super athletic left tackle. If, God forbid, Mailata gets hurt, he would be the backup. But the other thing is they never would have got maximum value because he was not willing to play right tackle or guard, for that matter.
Exactly. And now he's probably poised to get a decent contract in the offseason wherever he goes. There's one other thing I noticed, Adam, and I know you've got notes on it too, that really explain why not only why the Eagles ran well, but why they ran so much. And it goes back to what we were talking about going into the podcast, talking about what was Don Martindale going to do? Was he going to play a lot of man, or was he going to play zone like he did later in the season and against the Vikings, which worked? Well, he played a lot of zone, played a lot of cover 2, played cover 1. When he was in both zones, I took pictures of this because I couldn't believe it. I'm sharing the screen for people who can watch. You see this cover 2 here?
Perfectly. Nice.
It's not just about cover 2. This should remind you of what the Eagles defense looked like last year. The line of scrimmage here is basically midfield. The safeties are at the 33. They're 17 yards away from the line of scrimmage.
They're playing 4 coverage. Yeah, they're giving up too much room.
Is that not amazing?
When play was this, by the way?
This was a play late in I think on their second possession. So, I mean, look what you've got here. You've got tight splits here by the wide receiver. You got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 guys to face 1 to 5 in the box. Of course they're going to run.
Right. I remember you telling me that. Yeah, because they didn't load the box. They played coverage, a lot more coverage in this game because they were so worried about what the Eagles did to them in week 14. Mm-hmm. It was very clear, by the way. That was on Martindale's mind. And by the way, the Eagles didn't care on the first drive. They had a shot play, beautiful route by Smith on the crosser.
Yep.
I love that.
Here's another one. Yeah, you see this again? Look how far the safety is. For those watching at home, the safety here is at the 18-yard line. The line of scrimmage is the 40, basically. What? Even though it's cover 1, so you still have a safety in the box. I mean, look how far that other safety is. This wound up being a run for like 8 or 9 yards.
It's not quite Chris Maragos deep, but yeah, when the Eagles would put Chris Maragos out there, they had to. He was like 40 yards downfield.
So I just wanted to highlight. I could show you 2 more pictures of it, but that's basically the deal here. Is that Martindale played either 1 or 2 safeties so deep that the Eagles were like, well, fine, we'll just come out with 2 tight ends, which they played a lot of, and we'll just bully ball you.
Not only did Stoll, by the way, Jack Stoll block well. What happened was they technically opened 11 personnel with Pascal, but that's not what they did. They did, but they ran the ball out of it, and he is. I totally get now. Like when they signed him, Pascal, okay. Close relationship with Sirianni. Okay, you get it. We know we'd said he could be a red zone guy. He also could block for the run game, but I didn't know he was this physical. Holy bleep. He's been like this all season. On the pick play, on the rub route for the touchdown to Goddard, it was beautiful. He did and he just grazed the guy. Like they couldn't call it. It wasn't enough to call it offense OPI. Well, I'll tell you what, he's another. I get that they got a lot of contract issues. I understand that. I don't want to say he's like a must resign, but first of all, he should be used more in the passing game. I would love to see him used in the red zone, but as a blocker, I can't answer this. Maybe Avant or Cosell can answer this, but I find it hard to believe there's a better blocking receiver right now around the NFL. This guy's nasty at it. He's strong as hell. He see the way he's built. You and I saw him in OTAs. This dude gets after it, man. He's a really good football player for what they need him to do.
Yeah, and it was a good, smart signing, knowing that Quez Watkins was not a great blocker from the slot, but
Yeah.
knowing that they do run a lot and like to run. Here's a guy who last few years played for the Colts. They ran it a lot with Jonathan Taylor, so they knew he was a big-bodied interior receiver who had a lot of experience blocking. I mean, he blocks the way Jason Avant was a really good blocker and a crackback
Yep.
blocker. Everything that you have to do as an inside receiver.
As hell. He's a big 6'1.5", 6'1", 6'1.5" guy. Again, I'll say it again. Other than I don't count Jaquaski Tart, but I mean, other than the Robert Quinn trade, everything I can't think of another one move that didn't work in free agency. It's just crazy. Even Boston Scott, they paid a little bit of money. He's coming on when they need him to.
Right. So how about Jalen Hurts? I mean, we talked about whether or not he was going to run, whether he'd be protected. I thought the most encouraging thing actually was a bad thing. It's when he got strip sacked and nailed on the shoulder. But the fact that it didn't seem to bother him, you didn't see him limp off the field, you didn't see him get treatment. He took a pretty hard hit on that shoulder and had no issues from that point on. That said to me, Adam, that I think, even if he's not 100%, you saw him running. He was a little bit careful at times, which he should be. He doesn't want anybody landing on him and re-aggravating it. But I think I think this is a good enough Jalen Hurts from an injury standpoint to not have concerns going forward.
Yeah, and I like also that they added the extra day to prepare. That gives them Sunday, Monday, Tuesday for doing nothing but getting rehab on the shoulder. And you can't hit the guy in practice anyway, so he's gonna be able to get that thing as well as he can. And I also liked, and I think you talked about this in the pregame show. You had heard what their plan was in terms of he'll run, but making sure he's smart about it. So there was one play he clearly could have got more yards. He went right out of bounds. He still got decent yards. He said, "Oh no, I'm not going to risk my shoulder." About it's like smart move. I mentioned this, I think, on one of our shows last week, and it was so evident, and you could see it on the coaching tape. His way of hiding the football on RPOs. I don't know how many. I know they ran a bleep load. I said this is on our Friday show. They got to get RPOs in. They got to do it. I don't know. They seem like they ran a ton of them. I have no idea how many, but they seem like they ran a ton of them. He holds on and hides it so well. Watch Jalen Smith. He doesn't know where to go.
I know.
This is what I was talking about.
I know.
It was exactly what happened.
Jalen Smith, after watching the tape, they, in my mind, game plan, and again, I think that's part of like the 12 personnel, keep the Giants in their bigger nickel, their run-stopping nickel, have Jalen Smith on the field, and target him. I really believe that was sort of a red circle thing, not just happenstance, and they got him pretty good. There were some really interesting RPOs where sometimes you have your typical RPO where the line looks like it just is zone blocking and then he pulls it back and makes like a slant throw. But you had a couple of RPOs where you had Kelsey pulling, so it could have been an outside power or a pass built in. It just looked like the way that the rest of the line was blocking that, is either run if you hand the ball behind Kelsey, or it's a pass because everybody else on the line was more in vertical in pass sets, which is good. Again, that whole bye week of trying to think of different things and wrinkles that made it look nice.
That was our note in the pregame shows that I'd said that I really believe that 2 weeks off the bye week is really going to help them come up because they know this opponent. This should really help them. And man, they brought both sides of the ball, the coaching staff. I mean, they brought it, man. We'll get to defense. They did some stuff they had done in weeks, months, maybe. But man, Hurts, they should have like a coaching clinic tape. Other teams should see how Hurts hides the ball. The RPOs, he's so phenomenal at it. You could slow it down on TV, but it's much easier to see it on all 22. He looked fine. I thought that was really good. And Devontae Smith, it was one of these situations because they're playing so much too deep coverage that they still got him on the 40-yard pass. But I have to look. I don't know if they were on single high, but they got him on the first drive on the 40-yard shot play. But as you said earlier, they just were doing their best to keep it in front of them. They did, but the Eagles still took advantage of it. Smith is, I don't want to say he's unguardable, but he's so great at how he eats up ground and how smooth he is. And he seems to always win on his routes. He's a professional route runner, and he's so far ahead. I could see why he was a Heisman Trophy winner as a receiver, which is so rare. He's just really, really special.
Yeah. The physicality, by the way, showed by the entire pass catching group. I mean, you saw Goddard on his touchdown, stiff arm Xavier McKinney to the ground, made him look like he's a fifth.
What a catch, by the way.
Yeah, and it was a great catch. AJ Brown had a really nice block on that Devontae Smith touchdown. After the possession before, they tried a similar screen, and AJ didn't have a good block. So it was good to see him come back and put one on. We mentioned Zach Pascal had a decent number of good blocks as well. That's a physicality that you don't often see, especially when your receivers are some of the best in the league. So I think that's a real asset that the Eagles have. You know, your tight end and your receivers are all very willing and capable blockers. Even Devontae at his size can do that. And by the way, that screen pass that he caught that the Giants somehow couldn't tackle him on, even though he caught it behind scrimmage, it has to be the third or fourth time this year that he either bobbled, juggled, or tripped while catching the ball and still got a first down out of it. That's
because he got low. Yeah, you saw him as he got low, and he was still smooth though after catching the way he moved. It was also well blocked. The reason why is another thing. One of the reasons why they block so well, the receivers and running backs, they're taught, they're judged, they're evaluated when they're graded how they do when they don't have the football. So Sirianni, former college wide receiver, he's crazy with the fundamentals. You've got Kevin Petula, who's coach receivers, coach quarterbacks, who I know the Jets have interested in him and potentially talking to him to be their OC. Who else is on that? So obviously, Aaron Moore had a play in the league as a receiver. I mean, if you look at who's coaching these guys, yeah, man, they should be great with fundamentals. They get after it.
Listen, I remember some of our first podcasts after Doug was fired and Sirianni was hired and he was putting together our staff. And we said, just like quarterbacks should have played well under that cocoon of Doug and DiFilippo and Frank Reich, that wide receivers, which had not played well and had not been developing under Doug's regime and had one different wide receiver coach after another for year after year, that shouldn't be the case with this staff because Petullo was a wide receiver at one point. Sirianni, as you said, was a college wide receiver, and Moorhead played receiver in the NFL in college. So, I mean, there was almost no excuse for some of these receivers not to develop, on top of the fact that they're good ones like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to begin with. But, I mean, even in disappointment, I still think Quez Watkins has made some explosive plays this year. So there's been some development there.
Honestly,
go ahead.
I was just going to say on what you just said on Quez, it's probably a long shot because he's just not really much part of it. He didn't do it. He actually didn't have a target. In fact, Pascal played 2 more snaps than he did. But they could always pull out the shot play because they're a shot play offense anyway. And the Niners don't protect it well. So who's to say Quez, we'll talk more about this on Friday, who's to say that Quez doesn't get a couple shot plays in this game? I know it's going to be Bosa against Lane Johnson. We'll get to that Friday. Although they flip Bosa a lot. In fact, God, the first series of the game against Dallas, they flipped him from side to side. And I know he'll play a nickel. They might move him inside. But if they can protect, the shot plays are there. And you can never discount Quez Watkins because he's always capable.
No doubt. As for running backs, I know that Gainwell had 100 yards, and I'm not taking anything away from him. He played very well. He's also the recipient of, I think, some really good scheming and blocking. I mean, he picked up 14 yards on the fake quarterback sneak where they just pitched it to him outside, and he sort of ran untouched for, I forget how many yards. I think he got 14 on that. And I think of all the running backs who may have had the quote-unquote college holes that you talk about, those just wide gaping holes, he might have had the most of the three, but hey, he made the most of it. He had a really good game.
Wow.
I just don't want to take away from Miles Sanders, who I thought had, again, some really nice, tough runs early in the game. When the Giants got tired, you saw all of them be able to explode.
Gamble on the touchdown, 35-yarder. Watch his change of direction. Like we had said, the one thing's missing from him is the explosive plays. We know he's their third down back, more or less, and he was also sometimes their closer. Everyone, and plus he's been a goal line back. But man, he looked fresh. He ran hard. I love that move, the change of direction for the touchdown. And Sanders really fit the run well. Like he hasn't changed the way that he runs, but he's adjusted it, and it's really helped him to be a complete back. And Boston Scott had his he's just, I don't know what to say about this guy. He's a good football player, requisite touchdown, but I don't know why they won't use him a little bit earlier in games. And I was scored in the second quarter, but why can't he be a part of that backfield? Because they've shown the willingness this year to use all three. That's the interesting thing, which we didn't know was going to happen coming.
Yeah, I suppose you could. Then you taking the ball away from either Miles or it must be very difficult for them to sort of figure out the rhyme.
Scott's
or
a different
reason.
guy. He's different from those other guys.
He is. Great contact balance that he has.
Yes.
All right, let's move it over to defense now. First, we want to tell everybody about Mojo. We've been telling you about them for a long time now. They're building a sports stock market where you invest in your favorite players, invest in what you know. Nobody knows football like Inside the Birds listeners. We know that. So turn that knowledge into real money with Mojo, the sports stock market, real stats, real value. You buy shares, they entitle you to a guaranteed payout based on career ending stats. All right, that's big. No off days, no off season. The share prices rise and fall in real time based on career long projections. Cash out at any time, and you can build a portfolio as big as you want, buying and selling on your terms every play, every game, or every season. There's over 300 NFL skill position players across quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends to choose from. Mojo is available in New Jersey on iOS, and just by downloading the app, you get a chance to win up to $10,000 in free shares of player stock. Just click on that link in the description box for this video or podcast for that opportunity. Got to be 21 and physically located in New Jersey to trade on Mojo. But we know Mojo will be coming to a state near you soon if you don't live in New Jersey. So make sure you download it now and start seeing how these prices rise and fall. Get ahead of the game so when it comes to you, you know exactly what to do. And if you have a gambling problem, of course, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. You know, a couple of guys really stand out to me. I'm curious what you think, because Isaiah Pacheco is up 3.5%. I feel like he's got to get the ball more. I know it's a passing offense, but he runs really hard at him. And he had 95 yards on 12 carries.
I know
that Andy doesn't love to run. And I know he's like a guy who you never even thought going into the year was going to be this prominent, but he might be a pretty good running back.
Yeah, he runs with a lot of velocity. Yeah, it was interesting because after Mahomes got hurt, they knew with Henny in there, they can't throw every down. They have to have some sort of a run game, and they did. Pacheco got the ball. Then Mahomes came back in the second half, clearly hobbled on the right leg, and that's the power leg. That's how he pushes off. The left foot's the plant leg for right-handed quarterback, and he really struggled. It was kind of one of these situations where they scored 27. The Jaguars don't have a very good secondary. They could have put 40 plus had Mahomes not gotten hurt. In fact, I'm sure they would have. But Pacheco, he doesn't score a lot. It's kind of weird. He's the lead back, and he's much more powerful than McKinnon. McKinnon's the guy who seems to score all the time. Though he didn't score in this last game. But yeah, in the end, when you look at it, Pacheco clearly shown that he could be their lead back of the future.
Like, you never know what they're going to do in the offseason. I don't think they're going to sign a running back like Barkley or anything like that. That's not what they do. They may draft a guy, but I still think there's a good shot that Pacheco could go into next year as RB1 until somebody beats him out. As far as a falling guy, you might want to normally I say if a guy's falling, you may want to leave him alone. However, just because he got hurt, Tony Pollard is down 5.1%. He suffered a fractured left fibula. Obviously has to have surgery, but he's going to be a free agent. Somebody's going to sign him. Somebody's going to want him to be their top back, and he's going to get a lot more opportunities. So again, now he might sign with a bad team, and you're like, oh, what a waste. But now when the price is lower, down 5.1%, it might be a time to just jump in on him and see if he signs with a good team, recovers well, and because he should be a pretty good 3-down back in this league. We'll see. We'll see. I think that's always been the big question.
The issue with Pollard is how many carries he can handle. But now, what I was saying about Boston Scott, you might want to sell off now because they're not playing the Giants anymore. That's what I was trying to say.
I got
Because
you.
it's just so absurd. I can't think. I'm sure there are examples of he's technically the third string running back who just continues to score against the same team. It's clear Sirianni knew this, obviously, because he has the numbers. He said, okay, we're going to probably have a lot of luck here if we use him in a specific area, which is inside the 10, and he did it again.
All right, so that's our Mojo risers and fallers. Let's get into this Eagles defense against the Giants offense. And I tell you, if I know everybody watching the game from a fan standpoint is just happy it's a blowout, but there are some things after the game and then watching the tape, and I'm like, I don't mean to be critical, but when you see Jonathan Gannon play man this much, right, and throw a little bit of different things, obviously it wasn't a true blitz, it was a 4-man rush, but where Bradbury got the pick, you saw CJ Gardner-Johnson blitz, but Sweat backed up, so it was a 4-man rush, but it clearly surprised. It broke down the protection.
That's
a zone blitz. A zone blitz.
Fire zone, I think.
Yeah, fire zone usually means the nickel corner blitzes, but he was the nickel. You're right. Yeah.
I think because that was the Jim Johnson when he would drop the DN and the corner would blitz.
Yes. So that was that. But
yeah.
My takeaway was, okay, you did this against the Giants because you completely had no fear of Richie James and Darius Slayton and Isaiah Hodgson. It's sort of like, it's easy to be the bully when you're that much better than that offense. I think a lot of people, and I know Q&A talked about it, wouldn't mind seeing just a little bit of that tighter coverage that you played, a little bit of that throw another blitz here and then, just against a good team,
I don't know. See this game this week, because the Niners arguably have the deepest pass target group. And plus it's a completely different offense that they've faced this season. There's so many things that Kyle Shanahan does. Not only do I think they'll play zone,
agree.
It's how they're going to do it. We'll get into that Friday because I gotta continue to get opinions on this because I give Dallas, obviously they'll take something what Dallas did. Boy, they Dallas did great in the red zone. I know the Niners had a couple really nice drives, but again, they ended in field goals, so the red zone defense was pretty good. But it wasn't like they also had several series where they moved Purdy around. They pushed Purdy around because he didn't know where to go with the football. He just would scramble. So I'm interested to see what they picked up from the Cowboys tape.
I agree with you. I think naturally against an offense like this with its weapons and its quick hit ability, you want to be in zone early. But I'm just saying, if you get opportunities to have the Niners in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8,
yes,
that's when I want to see you challenge those receivers. And really, because I want to see you do that because Brock is going to feel that heat from the front four because you're giving your front four that second to get up on Brock. There are areas of the Niners offensive line that will not be favorable for the Niners, that it'll be more favorable for the Eagles pass rush.
Sure.
So I think you just want to see a little bit of that aggressiveness on third and line. I get you're not going to see it all the time, and I know the Giants are an easy target to be able to do it to, and it worked. They did it. It was fun just to watch tape and say, "Hey, wow, you see these corners are really challenging these Giants receivers." But like I said, then you think about it. Well, of course, like who wouldn't challenge these Giants receivers?
They erased them. The term that was given to me, and I'm taking that when they erased them. They completely just took them out of the game. I mean, it's just I know they had the coverage bust. Richie James should have had that for a touchdown, but that was a total coverage bust. That can't happen. It was in the third quarter. It doesn't matter if it's the first or third. I know they were blowing them out, but that's no excuse. Obviously, they'll get that corrected with better communication. But their zone exchanges were phenomenal. Their match carry and deliver was phenomenal. Just their communication was great. The zone pressures were great. Cover zero. My notes here. Gannon brought it out, and the offense was shut down. Clearly, 2 weeks helped. A ton of pre-snap and post-snap movement, lots of unscouted stuff. They either haven't done or they haven't done it in several weeks or months. This is what 2 weeks gives you against an opponent that you know. He emptied the bucket. Yes, you could always change it up. They're going to do different. You're not going to do the same stuff against the Niners. And as you said, they kind of knew that, yeah, Minnesota couldn't handle it, but they sure could because they have better personnel. It's kind of like, okay, we got great personnel. Let's use it. And they did.
I thought James Bradbury was tremendous. He played a really good game. And again, it's probably not difficult for him to erase Isaiah Hodgins, but he still was really good.
I want to find out. I know their man coverage was up. I got to find out how much it was up in this game. And their stunts have been up. Now I know they don't stun a lot overall, but I know that the percentage of their pass rush rate with stunts is very good. And then you saw the great one by I think it was a twist with Reddick, just so well timed
on fourth down.
Reddick is so. But Evan Neal must hate Reddick. He must not. He probably has trouble sleeping. I mean, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, because it happens to him every week. I mean, it's not.
But this is really bad. Like this is
bad,
really bad. And Sweaty looked really good. He's healthy. He looked good. And Reed Blankenship, they found some folks. They found a player here. I know he's not a great athlete. I get it. No one's like, yeah, he might be late to a play every now and then, but he's so smart in diagnosing. And you know what they did? Really good job of, because they saw what Minnesota did. So what they did was, okay, they're going to see what the Giants did in Minnesota, where they got him in a lot of intermediate routes. Well, okay, we're going to move Blankenship in the box. He started and he played a lot inside. He played a lot in the box. They took away those passes to Bellinger and to Hodgins. They kind of knew what was going to happen, and they know Richie James is their slot, but they took it all away. I mean, Cager had the 16-yard catch, but did nothing else. Another ex-Eagle, Marcus Johnson, had a 17-yarder, also got hurt in the game. They shut down Bellinger. Hodgins was a complete non-factor. He was erased. What else could you say? And they didn't get killed in the screen game. I was thinking in the game like maybe they would try Barkley. They did. But they shut him down, and they shut down Breida. Breida had a 19-yarder, but it was, again, they were not factors. They did a great job. What else could you say?
Yeah, that front four rush really came through because they did try to use Saquon as a receiver and as a screen weapon a couple of times, and those are slow developing. It was not necessarily even screen. They tried to hit him on some wheel routes.
One in particular, yes.
There were a couple that were there, and DJ. When you watch it on tape, right, and you're slowing it and you're stopping it, it looks like, why aren't you throwing the ball? And then when you run it in full, you realize, oh, because he's about to get hammered by Hassan Reddick or somebody else. And that was the case. So, yeah, I just thought in general that whatever the Giants tried to do, the Eagles had a good beat on it and weren't able to get it done. There was one other, Blankenship. You know, it's interesting because the Eagles were playing so much man. The Giants did try to attack him a little bit early. They got him like once or twice in the first quarter because they spread it out and forced him into a man situation, but not for anything big. And then they couldn't. You know, they tried. He just like maybe once or twice, and then after that, I thought Blankenship was really good and made some, as you mentioned, really good tackles, especially on some screens and just in the box. So. For a game that proved to be the winning formula, putting Reed Blankenship at safety and CJ Gardner-Johnson at slot. I imagine they'll keep doing that.
I think so. I would think so.
Maddox out.
Yep. The only other note I would make is that the yards that they gave up in the third quarter, they're called nickel yards. Teams don't care about that. If you're up by 28, you're like begging the other team to run. Please run. Yes, go ahead. Take time off. We're up by 28 points. Great. They gave up empty yards. They shut Barkley down in the first half. They made Jones a passer. They made him jittery. I give him credit for this much. I know he stare down Bradbury, but the old Daniel Jones probably would have had 5 turnovers. It's the difference between this guy now. He's much improved. But the Eagles made him jittery. They just did a great job. What else could you say? I mean, it's just this is a phenomenal performance, and this is what happened. This is why you get a bye. it gives you a chance to prepare for the opponent extra time that your opponent coming in doesn't have because they had to play the previous week.
Right. Oh, one observation. The Eagles were in a lot of 5-1 in this game. I think Kaiser White probably didn't play as much as he ordinarily plays. It might have just been because of the scheme they were in. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, he played some, but a lot of times we're used to seeing them in a 5-2 or if it's going to be nickel. They even played some 5-man fronts on nickel downs. It's almost like they weren't sure if the Giants were going to pop a few runs in there, like on 3rd and 4s. You'd see like Linval Joseph still in, where ordinarily you'd see like both Cox and Hargrave or something like that. So they did some interesting things there, just from a personnel standpoint that I think you meant, like unscouted looks, things that you haven't seen before that were matchup specific. So that was I'm looking for Kaiser White's snap count.
He played a lot, 60%. Yeah, 60%.
Did he? Let's see. Yeah. Edwards played 90% and Kaiser played 60. Usually Kaiser's over 70 depending on who they're playing. So yeah, they did a lot of 5-1.
And then the interesting thing, I forgot to talk about this. Before we get out of here, Jordan Davis, he had a couple plays where you could see him standing up, but you can't do it. He didn't get down, but he had one really beautiful. They comboed a tackle. He leveled the guy. I don't know if it was Breida or Barkley. It was a combination tackle. He looked really good on it. And then you notice now part of it's because they played nickel. They played so much nickel because they were up so big, or very early. This is good, actually good. Linval Joseph only had to play 10 snaps because they didn't need him. They simply didn't need him. And you saw Milton Williams in the first quarter, like he was playing a nickel. Milton Williams. He also played a little bass. Give the guys a little breather. This is good because they got up big early. They were able to change some things up. A lot of pre-snap and post-snap disguise. They brought some stuff. They brought out the kitchen sink. This is what a week off gives you. I remember John DiFilippo said on our show, sometimes it's not great when coaches have too much time.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a time when they clearly did, and they didn't overdo it. Give these coaches credit. This is a coach's game, man. They were phenomenal.
Absolutely. All right, I have one last question for you before we get out of here. First, I want to stop for a second to remind everybody about our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. Enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com. On Twitter at PHLSportsNation. We'll pause real quick for a word from our good friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to stop in at Sky Motor Cars in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam just sent you. You'll get a great deal. All right. You made a face sort of when we were talking about Eagles-Niners, and I said I think the Eagles are the better team.
Oh, yeah.
You don't seem sold on that.
They have a great roster. The Niners, I'm telling you, and we'll do more of this on Friday when we do the matchups, but I have so much information on the Niners. It's just, this is not a shot at the Eagles because they don't play. They play a completely different scheme. They're playing a lot of Seattle plays wide nine, a lot of the Seattle stuff. But Fred Warner's the best off the ball linebacker in football. Okay, again, not a shot at T.J. Edwards. He's been a great story of development. Greenlaw's super athletic, is a terrific football player. Nick Bosa, as this offensive line coach told me, who I spoke to the season, says he's the best DM he's seen, best passer he's seen in the time that he's been in the league. Now, is the Eagles secondary better? Yes. More talented? Yes. No, but I'll say Funga's been unbelievable. Who's a all-pro. It's just, I mean, Ayuk, Samuel, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you go through this line, and they've got a lot of good players here. But now, overall, do the Eagles have better total? Is the Eagles 22 better than the Niners 22? Perhaps. Okay. But
I think so.
Don't discount. And Kyle Shanahan is a phenomenal play caller and schemer.
He is.
And I'm throwing it, by the way, Geoff and I had a fun time on the Fanatic. We were going over the rosters for both teams in the week 2 game last year. Talk about stories of two teams completely changing, particularly the Eagles.
Yeah, really.
Oh, you can't use any of that tape. They're completely different.
Yeah, very. That game, what I'll never forget from that game is Jalen Hurts throwing a 91-yard pass to Quez Watkins against Lenore, who will be playing Diamador Lenore.
Yep.
And the Eagles not scoring a touchdown. I don't know how many times
you brought that up
you've
so
ever
many times.
seen a 91-yard play that didn't wind up being. No, I'm sorry. Not only did they not score a touchdown, they got 0 points. How many drives in the history of the NFL do you think you got a 91-yard play and 0 points without a turnover?
Was that crazy score? Was it 17-11 or something?
It was 17-11. And what happens was they went for it on 4th down and tried a sort of modified version of the Philly special. It backfired. It was not good.
Gotcha.
Yeah, on 4th down, nonetheless.
Look, the home field definitely has a factor here, and it's the Purdy factor. Playing is a moment going to be too big for him. You got to count that. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at what's the two Eagles are 2.5-point favorite. With the Bengals line, the Chiefs opened a 2.5-point favorite. Now the Bengals are 2.5. It's crazy what's happened there. And I also like the Bengals to win, by the way. I mean, do I have a small lean toward the Eagles? Yes, but I'm not quite there where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if that's where you're leaning.
Well, I mean, I am leaning Eagles. We'll go, give our picks on.
But man, and I didn't mention Kittle, who's the Eagle killer, 19 for 19.
I'll never get that stat out of my head.
Well, in the open field, he's actually more explosive than Kelsey. I mean, he's unbelievable with the ball in his hands.
He really is. He's going to be a nightmare. Q&A talked about that, the difficulty of that matchup, not just because of his skill set, but how he's used within that offense.
Like Q knows as a safety, you see this guy coming at you, good luck.
Oh yeah. He was not happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just folks. I'm so glad they're playing because it's coaches versus coaches, players versus players. This is what it should be about. The early call for the weather is clear. Let's hope it doesn't change. So I cannot wait till Friday's show because we have so much information Friday morning. We're working on a couple surprises for our Patreon people, and we'll see you tonight, and we'll also see you tomorrow night as well.
There you go. And by the way, just to add, Kaiser White, those 31 snaps he had were the fewest of the year. So he played. There must it must be matchup based because when they played the Giants in the season finale, he only had 36. So two of his 3 fewest snaps of the year came against the Giants. So clearly it's a matchup based thing there.
And I think Blankenship, man, he was inside the box. They moved him down. They dropped him down. It all worked. Look, everything they did before we get out of here, you got to give these coaches credit. And for the Jonathan Gannon haters, I mean, okay. There were some times when we agree with you where we didn't like the free access, which is something we've now talked about for 2 years, but other than that, folks, the guy's done a terrific job, and the numbers back it up. But look, that was then. This is now. They got to face a monster team, one of the top 3 teams in the NFL: Eagles, Niners, maybe Bengals, Chiefs. You could rank them all the way you want, but this is going to be a slobber knocker. I cannot wait for this.
Love it, Donnybrook slobber knocker. Using all those
Jim
great
Ross
wrestling
would say
terms.
that. Free wrestling people. Yep, you got it.
All right, well, we will break this slobber knocker Donnybrook slugfest down even more on Friday and then again on the pregame show. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds.